So atheism is not justified because the basis of which I'm going to explain now. So if atheism asks what God, then let's say that God has the most truth with his religion, like Islam, like that has the most preserved texts, logical and consistent and known for proofs. Then if it's said that it won't be sincere, like eventually it'll become sincere.
Okay.
Do you actually have mod here?
Yeah, I'm like, is there a mod in the server at all that can moderate a debate? Okay, so it was under my impression that this was a debate about Pascal's wager. That's what I thought this debate was about. Um, yeah, Abdullah is for Pascal's wager, and I'm against. I'm going to say Pascal's wager is a terrible. What'd you just say?
You say Abdullah's going to do the debate?
Yeah, I'm debating Abdullah on Pascal's wager. I'm against it. Abdullah's for it. I'm saying that Pascal's wager is a terrible argument for God, and Abdullah's saying it's a good argument for God. Okay? All right. So, I don't know if Abdullah was talking about atheism or whatnot, but yeah, I'm just going against the Pascal's wager argument. I'm not going for atheism or anything like that.
Got it.
All right. So you know how the formal debates go, right? Like Abdullah would start with the opening, then I would give my opening, and then Abdullah would give their critique on what my opening was. I would give my critique, and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay. So my critique against Pascal's wagers is going to be simple, right? So it's a wager, right? You're not coming with any evidence or anything like that. And if I'm not mistaken, the wager goes a little bit something like uh, Abdullah is Sunni Muslim, so Islam. Abdullah's going to say that it's better to believe in Allah, and if you're wrong, then nothing happens. If you're right, then you get eternal paradise. Um, but if I'm wrong, right, and I don't believe in Allah, um, then I could potentially have eternal damnation if I'm wrong. And if I'm right, then nothing happens. Am I wrong on that wager there, Abdullah?
No, you weren't wrong.
Okay. Okay. So the critiques that I have about this particular wager is that it presents a false dichotomy. Um, false dichotomy is a logical fallacy that presents only two extreme options as the only possibilities, when in fact there are more alternatives. So this is a false dichotomy. You're saying if Islam is correct.
What's the top?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of a debate. Yeah, yeah, this doesn't seem formal at all. But yeah, so I'm saying there's more alternatives to this than just Islam and or atheism. There's a potential that we're both wrong, right? And Christianity is the correct position. So while you're saying that it's either Islam or nothing, there are tens of thousands of different theologies that this wager can be presented with. So, for instance, there could be a God that does not want worship that exists, and you worship it, you're wrong. I don't worship it, I'm correct. There could be a God that only presents, it's a benevolent God, so it only presents heaven. So even if you don't believe, then you're presented with heaven. There could be a God that's malevolent, which even if you do believe, you go to the negative place or whatever. Um, Seeing as how I'm not an atheist, there could be a position where my God exists, which is the universe, which there is no heaven nor hell. You just get reconstituted into the system and eventually recombined into another being after so many millions or trillions of years. So these are the basic critiques that I have against Pascal's wager. Um, once again, could be it could be that we're both wrong, or it could be that uh, your God isn't the one that is, the correct God of choice here. So that's all I'll say for now. I'll listen to your critiques against that.
So, my critique against that would be that even though there are several gods, I don't mention a certainty in God. I meant like what would be rational to do if you can believe in God. So the rational choice would to be believing in God, as you would avoid being in the fire. So like if I gave you a bucket or whatever, and you don't know what it is, and I say that it either has two bad things, which is death and fire, you're probably not jump in it, right? So I would say the same for death, except that it's a life decision. So it is a rational belief, but it does.
I'm sorry, you cut out. Does anyone else?
Like, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. You cut out though. Yeah, please continue. It's just that you cut out in the middle of your sentence.
Alright. So, like, all religions, right? You might say, okay, then what religion? So, it's still rational. It's still considered rational if you choose to believe the most convincing religion. Because even in there are several religions, that doesn't mean that there's no truth. There is still truth to it. But atheism is kind of a avoidance of that matter. And that's why I say that Pascal's wager, atheists avoid the question, why not avoid it? Why not believe in God? And the one that's most convincing, because every religion has its own proofs. So like, and God is not really, provable to empirical evidence. It's very hard, right? You can't prove God with
This is
just
so fucking
logical
unorthodox and
conclusions,
just a
because
joke.
you would have several other arguments against it. So that's why I say that it's rational or epistemological correct to believe in God.
Yeah. Just to run that back a little bit. Um, yeah, I believe in a God. I'm saying Pascal's wager is a horrible argument for a God. Um, you're presenting, once again, a false dichotomy. You do realize what a false dichotomy is, right?
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Yeah. You're giving two choices here, that the rational choice is to believe without proof because of the potential gain. Um,
I didn't say without proof. I said like look into the religion that has the most proof within it. So that will be more convinced to you and more rational to believe.
yeah. So when we're talking about convince, you do realize that's entering the realm of subjectivity. So like other people are convinced for many different reasons. Um, Once again, you're only going with the Islamic God if you're presenting this wager. If you're not going with the Islamic God and you're just saying God in general, I'm not an atheist. So you wouldn't be arguing against me. I thought this was an argument about Pascal's wager, not about the existence of a God.
Well, I was actually trying to say that if you believe that God is completely not justified to believe, I was arguing against that. I was using Pascal's wager as a way to epistemologically make it correct to believe in God.
Yeah, and Pascal's wager argues that believing in God is most rational because even without proof, there's potential gain of eternal happiness. Um, yeah, this isn't talking about any God, it's talking about a specific type of God, a theological one that gives eternal happiness. How do you ground your argument in being able to present this God that gives eternal happiness? What says that this is the case? Because many different theologies, and including deism, there's God without eternal happiness or a loss.
Oh, like, even though there is different gods, some atheists might say, okay, then, well, believing in a fairy tale is also justified. But I would reply that even atheism itself is not justified because there are also several arguments against it, which I can bring here too. So the point is, God, believing God is not to be said compared to something that is not to be believed in. Something that it could be convincing, and the proofs within each religion could be like, for example, other religions, for example, they don't have persuasive text, right? Like Islam, right? It has a persuasive text, which makes it more convincing to those who don't believe in God. And you can believe in God because it has the most persuasive text. Now, look, you can look up the historical proof on it. It's literally historical. That means there must be a God who brought that revelation down, made preserved till this day. But other religions have like the Bible. It was updated like many times, right? Like the revelation that Islam sent, it wasn't updated or changed. It wasn't changed at all. That's why I'm saying that Islam is the most convincing religion, and Hazel's wager is only makes you rational belief, but doesn't give the evidence to it. The evidence, you could say, is within the religion itself. So you know what religion.
Yeah, so I'll say it for a third time. I'm not an atheist, but I'm not a theist. So I do believe in God, and I wouldn't see Pascal's wager as being any type of convincing evidence. That's why it's called a wager. So um, I just need you to sort of tackle this question here, if you could, please. What makes your specific God the one that we're wagering on? Why are we wagering on your specific God and no other God?
The specific God, I say that Islam is that specific God that is the most truth. Because if you look at other religions like Christianity, that have corrupted text, right? Over time, it's like changed. You don't really know what it is. Like Islam is more complete in its text and it's more preserved than any other religion. Likewise, atheist might say, okay, then I will follow this religion that has the most convincing text, which is Islam. And then that's why I say that God in Islam is the most conclusive and closest to the truth. Although it might, in although it might not bring evidence, it makes you rational to see what is the most convincing religion. So you believe in.
Yeah, so this is just going to be your own personal opinion. You're convinced by the evidence that you say exists, which is actually just the claim. Um, and so you're convinced. Why would I be convinced of that evidence? And then, number two, how did you rule out all other gods? That's the question.
So you're right about matter. It might be subjective, but like historical proof isn't subjective. So like if you look up historical proof, it's not subjective anymore. Look at the proofs and all that. You might see that most of the proofs are not actually subjective. It's actually within what Islam says that it's preserved, right?
But that has
It's not
nothing to do.
subjective.
Yeah, just to stop you, that has nothing to do with the Pascal's wager.
Well, I said that each religion has a proof, right? You might have denied that, which I said that there is convincing religion, but Pascal's wager is only makes you, it gives it strength to believe in God and rational. Some atheists might say, oh, it's not epistemological correct to believe in God. I would argue against that using the Pascal's wager is just as a way you might avoid any other kind of harm to yourself, like in this life. You might also avoid that in the next world because you have no knowledge of that. So that's why I say Pascal's wager is strong, and the way I rule out other gods is through their own revelation and how much how they have arrows inside that. Like when I look in Islam, there's no arrows at all. You can look up yourself. You might see that there's no arrow. It might be a tradition problem. Oh no, there's no arrow. It's just preserved till this day. But even if it's not convincing to you,
Yeah.
it's still better than other religions. God.
Yeah. When you say
That's why
stuff
it's
like,
better.
right, I understand. When you say things like better and it's more convincing to me, yeah, this is just, once again, we're running into this problem where you're convinced, but no one else is, right? And so when we get past that, we have to get to the point to where Pascal's wager, you do realize what a wager is accepted as proof, I guess. I don't see where we're going with this. Um, for the fifth time, I'm not an atheist, so I couldn't care less about what an atheist believes or doesn't believe. Um, I need to know how you are simultaneously taking away all other gods and only adding your own and saying this is the one to bet on with this Pascal's wager. Um, let's do it like this. There's a false dichotomy in which you're adding the only two options are no God and Sunni Islam God. That's what we're talking about here. What I'm presenting is that there are other frameworks here. There are the possibility of having a benevolent God that sends you to heaven even though you don't believe. There's a possibility of a malevolent God that sends you to hell even though you do believe. There's the possibility that there's a God and no heaven and no hell. And there's the possibility that there's no God and no heaven and no hell. Why are we going to say that the Sunni Islam God is the best case scenario? If you're going to say that the evidence is the claim, which is the Quran, then this is called circular reasoning.
So let's say, okay, you made a good point there. Like you said, there's a different God. There's many possibilities after death. You might say we don't. We just. You might say that we made God ourselves. you're deist. You're saying that you don't have any proof of revelation or prophecies, right? So that's a good point. Like when there's an intellectual God who created this universe, why would he not intervene in human matters and bring a revelation like the Quran and guide through that book? That's my question. And that's why I believe in God, because it proves all those questions that weren't answered. And a deist is not certain in himself either.
Okay, yeah, so you're talking about classical deism now. So we're going to switch from Pascal's wager into why I'm a naturalistic pandeist and not a classical deist. So yeah, classical deism says that there's some God. The God either started the universe or created it. Kind of currently in a debate right now. Yeah. So classical deism is going to say that there's a God that either started or created the universe and then doesn't have anything to do with it, kind of left it to its own mechanism. I'm not that type of deist because I don't believe that the universe was created. I don't believe that energy is created or destroyed like the second law of thermodynamics states. In a closed system, energy isn't created or destroyed. Because we can't create or destroy energy and we don't witness that, I'm led to believe that this is a closed system, which also leads me to believe that energy isn't created or destroyed. So I'm just going to say that God was in one form, right, i.e., light or pure energy, like how it says in the Big Bang model, and that energy transformed into the universe, which is what we are now. So God was in one form and God transformed into the universe. So there's no revelation, there's no intervention there at all. Um, Other than that, yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about why uh, God doesn't have agency and things like that, we can talk about it. But yeah, I'm just going to say that I don't believe that consciousness or logic is fundamental. I believe that it's emergent. And so there you go. Um, yeah.
You would say that, well, now we lead to a conclusion that universe itself is God. Okay, well, that's still ignoring the question whether it is right to believe in God or just to ignore God, because there's so much possibilities. Even though there might be so much possibilities, it doesn't ignore the fact that there is a religion and there is truth to it. So you would ignore all the religions and you would just lead to one conclusion that you are not certain, and lead to the conclusion that the universe is God, for example, or you might say there's no God at all. Right? That's just a conclusion that's made based on no evidence, but that's how you interpret evidence. There is evidence to it. It's not on how you would imagine. For example, if God created the universe or this world, and he made a clear proof, for example, that a miracle, and he would break the purpose of believing God. So everyone would believe in God. Then what would faith be? So there will be no reward for those who believe in God, and there will be no punishment either. So there will be there's no point of believing God. Like there will be no point. Reward for everyone. That's why God made science that we seek through without any arrogance or anything that may prevent us from believing God. So that's why I said that God is true, but we can't just ignore like all the religions. It's come to a conclusion that there's so much possibilities. I don't want to believe. You still have to believe in God.
Yeah, so we can get to that conclusion with Christianity also. We can get to that conclusion with Hinduism. We can get to that conclusion with so many other theologies. There's nothing that states that your theology is greater than any others. This is the reason why you brought up a wager and not conclusive evidence. If you have the conclusive evidence, you just present that instead of the wager. And we all know that wager just basically means guess.
even though there are other religions, and you might just say it's a guess. Well, I said that the religion, example Christianity or Hinduism, don't have as much as convincing proof to Islam. I'm not being subjective here. I'm looking at the proof from an objective view. For example, the historical proof, right? The preserved text. There's no more preserved text than the Quran, right? It's been perfectly preserved over years. All the letters are completely the same. That's my proof, right? And there's other proofs, not the only one. There's other proof, which states that there's no other book that can be created just like the Quran, and it's a whole. So there's many other convincing proof. But if you look at the religions of Hinduism or Christianity, God gave us hints. He if you look at the book, there's arrows inside, right? Now you might say that's subjective. Okay, then look at it from an objective view, and you will find that one religion will be more convincing to you, which makes it rational to believe. Which I believe is Islam is the most rational one to believe, and most convincing.
Yes, convincing to you. I understand that. Yeah, so if you would please just, if you're near a computer or anything like that, Google or anything, type in, is the Quran a claim? Yeah, the Quran is a claim. So if you're saying that the claim is your proof and evidence for the God being actual and real, then that's just circular reasoning. That's the classic definition of circular reasoning. So in closing, I'll say it like this. You might be convinced that the Quran is true. You're fairly able to do so. You're okay to do that. But there are millions and billions of people that aren't convinced by the claim of the Quran. So without that, I want to say smoking gun evidence, the empiricism which leads to the conclusion that Allah is the one true God, you're using Pascal's wager to guess and say that your God is the true God to believe in. There's no reason to, dismiss any other God out there except for the fact that you're convinced by the claim of the Quran. So, with that said, man, I'll just go ahead and conclude by saying that.